Hey everyone, Felix from Nintendo Life here, and I have just returned from the States where I got to play Super Mario Party Jamboree, and while I was there, tons and tons of information was released about this game. 1, we have a Japanese website, and 2, the preview embargo went up, so a lot of new information came in. And today, I wanted to make this big video where I go over every single detail that we've learned about this game. This includes an in-depth look at all the 7 boards where I decided to count all the spaces. That was a mistake. And I also go through one by one the 110 plus minigames. So strap in, get ready, and let's dive right into it. Before anything, I just want to talk about the UI and presentation of this game because it is out of this world. When you initiate a minigame, the way that the characters line up, depending if it's a 2v2 game or a free-for-all, after battling it out, you'll all be on a podium depending on how well you're doing. The camera movement also seems to be much more dynamic. When you're nearing the space that you're going to land on, your character slows down. And they actually improved on the stickers/reactions because they were so intrusive in Superstars, and now they're all neatly lined up in the bottom, not taking up that much space. They've also changed the design of these stickers, so now they have this lineless art, which in my opinion actually looks really good. And staying on the bottom there, I think what they've done is brilliant. So it shows which character's turn is next and when there is a minigame, so you always know what's coming up. And this also includes specific events on the different boards, for example the tides changing on Goomba Lagoon or the flash sale in Rainbow Galleria. But before going more in depth with the boards themselves, I want to talk about the characters and also the overworld. First off, let's have a look at the characters. There's 22 as we know it. Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, Wario, Waluigi, Yoshi, Toadette, Toad, Rosalina, Pauline, DK, Birdo, Bowser, Goomba, Shy Guy, Koopa Troopa, Monty Mole, Bowser Jr., Boo, Spike, and Ninja. Out of all of these characters, it seems that Pauline and Ninja are the unlockables, so I don't think we'll see any more characters than that. Sorry, Diddy Kong and Dry Bones. We also now know that the Bowser on Bowser Spaces and in the Bowser modes is called Imposter Bowser. We also learned that at the start of each turn, each character will have their own little jingle, which I think is just such a neat little detail. We now move on to the overworld, which we now know exactly how it's going to look thanks to the Japanese website. This picture here shows clearly all the different islands that you'll be able to visit. And in the middle, we have the hub where you'll select which of the islands you want to go to in your hot air balloon. Starting off, let's have a look at the minigame island. And here it seems like you'll have 4 different modes to choose from. The first mode is the daily challenges, and here you'll be competing in all sorts of different minigames. These can be 3v1, 2v2, or free-for-all. There'll be 3 packs every day, and these will be categorized into different types of minigames. For example, the bottom one here seems to be all space minigames. The second mode seems like you'll be competing 2v2, and in the third one you'll all be voting for the minigame that you want to play. Now the fourth mode I'm a bit uncertain about. You're all in submarines, and it seems like you'll compete in Jamboree Buddy minigames. Yes, this was something that was revealed in the previews and on the Japanese website, but we'll go more in depth later on in this video. And now moving along, we'll go clockwise around these islands, ending off with the big attraction itself. So that was the minigame islands. What do we have to the right of it? We have the Bowser Islands, and here you'll have the Kooplathon mode and Bowser's Kaboom Squad. In Kooplathon, 20 people will compete online. You're trying to make the most laps around this board, and the way you do that is by collecting coins in the different minigames. Once you've done a few of these, you'll all enter a minigame where you have to stay alive until the timer runs out. And if you don't, you'll be pushed back a number of spaces depending on where you were ranking amongst the 20. The more you were leading, the further you'll be pushed back. In Bowser's Kaboom Squad though, you'll be competing together with 7 other people. You're all trying to collect bombs to fire at Bowser, and sometimes you'll all cooperate in a minigame, and depending on how well you do in these minigames, you'll have better items to choose from. These items you will then lay out in the overworld, so you'll have an advantage getting the bombs to the cannon. Then we move further along the clock to these floating islands, and this is actually the mode we know least about. We've seen a little bit of footage, but that's about it, so I can't really go into more detail on that. What I can go more into detail about is the Joy-Con island, and here we find the settings building and the cooking building. In the settings building, well, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. You'll be able to change the settings, and in the cooking building, that's where you find all the cooking/rhythm games. Finally, we have the main attraction where we can see all the 7 boards on display. Now we do also know which of these boards won't be available at the start, because when we previously saw this shot, King Bowser's Keep, Western Land and Mario's Rainbow Castle weren't built yet. There has been talks of an 8th unlockable board because of this crack in the wall, but personally I just unfortunately don't see it happening, mainly because if we look at this picture also found at the website, I just don't think there'll be enough room to add an 8th icon there, but I'll happily be proven wrong. And yeah, that was everything in the overworld. Let's move on to the boards themselves, and this is the part of the video that took me the longest because I decided to count all the spaces on each board, 1 to see which boards are the biggest, and 2 to see if there's a good variety of the spaces themselves. So let's start with the board that was shown off in previews, being Mega Wiggler's Tree Party. This is the starter board, and the main gimmick of this board is that you have a giant wiggler that can run around and change the available paths. Do be careful though, because this wiggler can turn angry, and if doing so, all the spaces on the wiggler will turn red, thus making the journey over it a bit more treacherous. Now let's go over the different spaces. And because of the previews, we have the actual map of the board, which makes this whole process a whole lot easier than counting on blurry pictures and looking at different types of footage from different parts of the boards. Having the map, yeah, that is nice. We have 1 starting space, 26 blue spaces, 4 red spaces, 13 lucky spaces, 1 unlucky space, 2 Bowser spaces, 9 event spaces, 2 versus spaces, 3 item spaces, and 1 chance time space. Now some of these spaces are on the wiggler, so it means that some of the blue spaces can turn into red spaces, and some of the lucky spaces can turn into Bowser spaces, which, ooh, so we can have up to 4 Bowser spaces up on this board. It all culminates into a total of 62 spaces, so not the biggest board, but to me it seems like there's a lot of good variety as a starter board. Outside of the spaces, we have 2 shops, 1 Koopa and 1 Kamek, and we also have 1 Boo. And the different event spaces are also quite tasty. We have 4 Piranha Plant spaces, which if you land on them, a Piranha Plant will steal your coins, and the more people land on these spaces, the more coins they'll steal. We have 3 event spaces, which will change the position of the wiggler, and up top we have 2 event spaces where you'll partake in a honey coin minigame. Essentially, you have to guess on where the honey is while avoiding the one with bees in it. Moving along, we have Goomba Lagoon. So the main gimmick of this tropical board is that 1, the tides can change, meaning that sometimes you can't access certain paths, and 2, you have a giant Goomba volcano that can erupt either lava or golden Goombas to fall on spaces. The lava, it's probably not so good to land on, and the golden Goombas, well, the complete opposite. This is quite a big board. We have 1 starting space, 33 blue spaces, 9 red spaces, 18 lucky spaces, 4 unlucky spaces, 2 Bowser spaces, 9 event spaces, 4 versus spaces, 8 item spaces, and 1 chance time space. There's also 1 space I can't quite make out. I know it's blue, but it can either be a blue space or a lucky space. It all adds up to a juicy 89 spaces. Whew, I like the sound of that. We have 3 shops on the board, 2 Koopa and 1 Kamek, and 2 Boo spaces. Now it looks like there's 4 different types of event spaces. One of them is a fishing minigame where you can collect some coins, the second you open some chests, the third one I think is making the tides change, and the last one makes you go wee! In the next board you won't go wee, but you'll go wee. In Roland Raceway, the main gimmick is that you'll drive around in cars. The star is at 2 static locations. I mean, they're pretty close to each other, it's just so that you can choose one of the 2 branching paths. And this map also has a unique item, being the quadruple dice. Yeah, they really want you to feel like a race car and zoom around. In this one, we don't have a starting space, but we do have 31 blue spaces, 3 red spaces, 13 lucky spaces, 2 unlucky spaces, 2 Bowser spaces, 11 event spaces, 2 versus spaces, 10 item spaces, and 1 chance time space, bringing the total up to 75 spaces. You have 1 shop, which looks to be a Koopa Troopa shop, and 1 Boo. And the different event spaces are as follows. You have 3 different types of catapults that'll launch you forward on the map. You have a green one, a blue one, and a red one. You also have a chaser car event, which will chase you along the top side of the map. In the bottom, there's also some kind of pit stop. I don't exactly know what this one does, but it does look intriguing. So yeah, it's a pretty linear board, but I honestly really like the gimmick, and I love that they're trying new stuff off and that we are in separate cars instead of in the same one. Then let's have a look at one of the best looking boards of the bunch. It's Rainbow Galleria. The gimmick of this one is that you're in a mall, and there's a lot of uniqueness about this one. One, you can go around collecting stickers, and if you collect all of them, you can gain 50 coins. There's also a tombola with prizes, flash sales which lower the star cost, and loads of different shops. Now this one was a bit tricky to count the spaces on simply because in the wide shot it's really hard to judge what the top floor spaces are. But I did the best I could, and it did help that there was quite a bit of footage on the Japanese website from this board. We have 1 starting space, 21 blue spaces, 4 red spaces, 12 lucky spaces, 2 unlucky spaces, 2 Bowser spaces, 11 event spaces, 3 versus spaces, 5 item spaces, and 6 spaces which I could simply not make out. 2 of them appear to be green, 2 of them blue, and 2 which I can't see. But I am quite certain about the total amount because the spaces I can't see are here on the left hand side, and on the right hand side I could see them, so I can judge that if there are this many spaces on the right side, then there's probably also the same amount on the left. And the total amount of spaces is 67. It looks like we have 1 Boo, which is a shop this time around, and also 1 item shop. I couldn't see a Kamek shop in this one, but there are loads and loads of other shops to make up for it. Then we have the last new board, and it's King Bowser's Keep. The gimmick of this one is that there's a giant square surrounding Imposter Bowser, and the direction can change from clockwise to counterclockwise. It does look like the star will always appear in the square, but there is a catch. More and more Bowser spaces will appear, so some of the spaces that aren't Bowser spaces can turn to Bowser spaces in this square. It also looks like you can go back to the start if you go to the pipes in the back, so that's actually pretty cool. But let's have a look at the spaces themselves. Now this was another one that was a bit hard to make out simply because the wide shot doesn't have a whole lot of detail, but the footage on the Japanese website did help out a whole ton, so I managed to make out all the spaces but 6, and I have the total amount. We have 1 starting space, 28 blue spaces, 5 red spaces, 21 lucky spaces, 1 unlucky space, 2 Bowser spaces, 5 event spaces, 1 versus space, 7 item spaces, 2 chance time spaces, and 6 spaces I just couldn't make out, making a total of 79 spaces. It only looks like there's 2 types of event spaces. One is the ones in the giant square, and if you land on them, most likely you'll just change the direction which you can go in. And the other one is up top here, we have some bullet bills which if you land on them, you'll probably be sent back to the start or something. So yeah, this is probably the one we know the least about, but I actually think it's the board I'm most excited for just because it looks like there's so much going on. You have right here where you can get some coins, up top right, I don't know what's going on there, and we also have a tiny Mecha Koopa and a Mega Mecha Koopa. It looks like there's 3 shops this time around, 2 Kamek and 1 Koopa, and no Boo around. Boo-hoo. Then we have the 2 boards coming back from older Mario parties, and we're starting off with Mario's Rainbow Castle. The gimmick of this one is that the star is always in the same place, so you're all racing to get to it, but there is a catch because either it can be Yellow Toad waiting for you with a star, or it can be Imposter Bowser and bad things happen. In the original one you would buy a fake star for 40 coins, now we don't know if that's what's gonna happen here, but that would be pretty brutal in all the best ways. The 1 shop on this board will also change depending on who is at the top of the castle. When it's Yellow Toad you have Koopa, and when it's Imposter Bowser you have Kamek. This one was really nice because I could get a clear view of all the spaces on it. We have 1 starting space, 21 blue spaces, 3 red spaces, 7 lucky spaces, 2 unlucky spaces, 2 Bowser spaces, 7 event spaces, 2 versus spaces, 5 item spaces, and 1 chance time space, making a total to 51, so the smallest of the bunch. As I said earlier, we have 1 shop which rotates between Koopa and Kamek, and there's also 1 Boo. The event spaces on this one is quite simple, as they will just change who is at the top of the castle. One neat little detail is that in the original one Bowser would come around, that was that, but in this one the whole aura and vibe of the board changes, and I'm all here for it. And now we have the last board of the 7, Western Land. Now this was previously the biggest board in any Mario Party, but it's been cut down a little bit in terms of total spaces. The gimmick of this one is that you can take a train to zoom around on the map, and you'll also hit other players who are on the train track. There's 1 starting space, 31 blue spaces, 7 red spaces, 15 lucky spaces, 3 unlucky spaces, 3 Bowser spaces, 9 event spaces, 4 versus spaces, 10 item spaces, 1 chance time space, and 4 spaces which I couldn't make out, and also approximately 5 spaces which are just not viewable because they are behind this building and tree. It could also be 4, it could also be 6, but I'm just saying around 5. So the total amount is approximately 93. So still a huge board. Yeah, so this one is the only one where I actually couldn't get the total full amount of spaces. This is a pretty good estimate of what we'll have. We have 2 boo spaces and 3 shops, 2 Koopa and 1 Kamek. And the event spaces of this one can either be on the train tracks, which will set the train in motion, or you can get a good hootenanny and get everyone up and drink some milk by the Wiggler. That was a long section, much longer than I anticipated, but why don't we move on to something else now? Let's actually have a look at what these Jamboree Buddies are. Now, this is the big gimmick of this Mario Party game, and the way it works is that it's a twist on the ally system from Super Mario Party. At some point during the game, a Jamboree Buddy will float down, and the first person who gets to it will initiate a Jamboree Buddy minigame. These will vary depending on which character has flown down. For example, Donkey Kong has this rhythm one. The person who initiated the minigame will also get a little advantage. Then, if you win, you will gain this character as an ally, and depending on which character it is, they can grant you different power-ups, but that is not all. Everything is double. If you go to a shop, you can buy 2 items. If you go to a star, you can buy 2 stars if you have the coins for it. But also the bad stuff, so if you land on red spaces, you will lose coins twice. Now this all seems quite overpowered, but the Jamboree Buddies only last 3 turns, and if someone runs past you, they will just take the Jamboree Buddy with them. So it's quite easy to lose, and this ally will probably switch around multiple times in the 3 rounds that it's there. I'm really excited to see how this plays out. I don't know if it'll be balanced, I don't know if it'll be fun, and it doesn't look like you'll be able to turn it off, but it does add some spice to the gameplay. I just really hope we can turn it off in case that it isn't as fun. Now though, it's time to look at all the minigames, and boy oh boy, this part also took a long time to put together. So we have 110 plus minigames, or actually we have 112 precisely, because on the Japanese website, at one point they show off this screen which showcases all the minigames. And I am certain this is all the minigames simply because this part at the top, Subete, means all in Japanese. So, the types of minigames we have are as follows: 29 free-for-all minigames, 12 1v3 minigames, 13 2v2 minigames, 9 duel minigames, 10 Jamboree Buddy minigames, 5 question marks, which can either be more Jamboree Buddy minigames, but also boss minigames, because we know that boss minigames are back, but they are not to be seen anywhere here, so I'm inclined to believe that the question marks are that. We also have 10 Bowser's Kaboom Squad minigames, the 8-player mode, 9 Kooplathon minigames, 5 Bowser Kooplathon minigames, and 10 Cooking Rhythm minigames, all making a total to 112. And out of all these minigames, only 10 are returning minigames, which Steven Totillo posted on his Twitter that a Nintendo executive confirmed for him. And now we shall look at all the different types of minigames there are, and we'll just start from one end and take them one by one. Now, some of them I do have like a proper screenshot from the website, and some of them I do not. So I apologize for the variety in quality of images shown here. The first game is an obstacle course where you have yellow shy guys who are trying to make you fall to your doom or just into a pile of water. The next one has toads running on these big balls. Maybe it's something to do with perspective, but there's only 3 of them. I actually have no idea if it's just a luck game where you have to choose one and then they all battle it out and see who is the last one standing. Ooh, this one is one of my favorite looking games. Essentially, you have a camera and you have to find the exact spot of the picture. Not only that, you have to align it and zoom in and make it look as similar as the original reference picture in the middle. Another obstacle course where if you lose you get electrified, oh no. And on this one you're running around on a planet and there's all these flags that you have to make your own. It seems that when another player has already taken a flag, that is set in stone, you can't steal them back later on. Sandwiched is one of those games that I actually have played myself, and this is so fun. All these sandwiches fall down and then you have to try and not get squished while ascending this picnic basket. The next one I also got to try at PAX, and this one is a bit more mind gamey. So how it works is that you have 4 different shapes, and then everyone chooses one of the shapes. The catch is though that if 2 or more players choose the same shape, that shape can't be used. So you have to figure out, okay, which shape do I take that the other players won't? It is really hard, and you have to know your opponents to come out on top. I also got to try out this one, and it's actually really fun. The objective is simple: ground pound to pulse it outwards, and if that hits your opponents, they will lose a life. Lose 3 lives and you're out. This one I'm actually a bit unsure what it's about. Maybe it's a memory game where you have to remember, okay, behind this thwomp there's an apple, behind another thwomp there's something else. Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. This one looks really fun. You have the enemies from Mario Odyssey that are blowing wind, and you just have to try and stay on this icy platform. Another one of those, we have to try and stay on a platform, but instead of ice, it is now molten lava, and you have these enemies that are trying to eat you. Yeah, another one that looks really fun. I'm a big fan of these where you have to try and not get hit off the obstacle course, so a lot of them is a win in my book. Then we have a returning game, Domination from Mario Party 4, essentially a button mashing game where you have to knock over as many thwomps as possible. Another returning Mario Party 4 game, 3 throw, where you have to hit as many baskets as possible. So yeah, just hit as many 3 throws before the timer runs out. And we are staying on returning games because this one is Granite Getaway from Mario Party 6. Don't get crushed by the big boulder. Then we have a motion control game, and I actually think the next couple of ones are as well. This one in particular, you have to move your Joy-Con around to get the ball in the hole, and you can even whip it up. I tried so myself when I got to play out the game to make the ball jump, and you can do this, for example, to jump over a sandpit. It is very overpowered, and I would deeply encourage you to do so when you play the game. The next one I presume is also a motion control game. Essentially, you want to charge up the light so it reaches up the star, and by the looks of this wheel here, I think you'll do this by swinging your Joy-Con around in a circle. This one Alex got to try out firsthand, and you just have to whack when the hammer starts flashing. This one also looks like a motion control one where you have to whip your controller from left to right to make the Cheep Cheeps fall down in the Cheep Cheep box and the bloopers down in the blooper box. This one I also think you have to whip your controller from left to right to avoid the electricity. I'm not completely sure, it could also be with your joystick, but I'm fairly certain it is motion control. This one I actually saw some footage on online, and it looks like at Triathlon this one is also motion control, and it looks like it's mashing together multiple minigames into one. For example, here on the bikes, I remember that from Super Mario Party where you have to do this weird motion with your Joy-Con. Now I don't know if this one is motion control or if we're out of it. It could be fairly similar to the one where you have to hit the nails down, but now you just have to dig your way out. It could also just be a button mashing one. Either way, it looks like they're digging, so you're trying to dig faster than your opponents. Now this one looks like it's luck based. Essentially pick a key and hope that it opens one of the 3 doors. Oh, this next one looks like a real treat. So I also saw some footage of this one, and it looks to be one of the best of the bunch. You have to let go of your penguin in time, and then you'll keep sliding forward like a curling ball. If you did it too late, you'll fall off an edge, but if you did it just in time, well, you could be the winner. I also saw in the footage of this one, a person got really close to the edge and they actually got an achievement. So it looks like there's some kind of achievement system in the game, which is really, really cool. Staying on the topic of ice, now we are in an ice skate, and this is of course similar to how it works in 3D World, but now we have a whole minigame about it. It looks like it's a coin minigame, so collect more coins than your opponents before the timer runs out. We have another coin minigame where you're jumping around on these presumably moving platforms. Again, get more coins than your opponents before the timer runs out. Again, a coin minigame. This one reminds me a bit of the Mario Party 1 minigame where it's 2v2 and one is diving for treasure while the other one is trying to reel them up with a fishing rod. Now it's 4v4, so you just have to try and get the best chests with the most coins before your opponents. Again, I love the obstacle courses minigames, and this one looks to be no different. A coin minigame no less. You have these walls and you have to kind of guess which way to go. As you can see here, Monty Mole has picked the wrong path and now has to go all the way back to join Donkey Kong on the left path. In this one, you're trying to get the most color on the piece of paper. I got to try this one out myself, and I can safely say that it is as good as it looks. Oh, we have footage again. In this one, you're jumping on these enemies and you don't want to jump on the spines. Fairly self-explanatory. And now we'll be moving on to the 1v3 minigames, where we have 12 of them. This one shown off at the trailer was also at the PAX demo, and it was actually really hard as the team of 3, as not only does the one person get multiple tries, I do believe it was 5 tries that they got to knock us out. So I think the one person does have maybe a bit of an unfair advantage. I also got to try out the next 1v3 minigame, and this one is actually a bit more balanced, although if the 3 people work together, I think they can be much faster than the single person. You're trying to cut out cookies. The single person has to do it all themselves, while the 3 people have 1 button each. In this one, it looks like the one player's in a spaceship and are dropping platforms. You can walk on one side of them and the other one has spikes. In this minigame, the player alone is selecting one of the 4 holes to jump into, and the other 3 then have to guess which one it was so they can smack them on the head with a hammer. I assume that in this one, the single player is trying to rack up as many points, and the 3 others are trying to prevent them from actually hitting the target. I got to try out this one and it's actually really fun. The single player is switching the on and off switches to make it more unpredictable when the spiky enemies will fall down and hopefully hit the 3 players running around frantically on the bottom. It's a 1v3 game where the 3 people have to hold out until the timer runs out, while the one person is trying to box them out. One person is swimming around in the swimming pool while the other 3 are trying to catch them with this big cage. 2 of the people are controlling the directions, while the 3rd one decides when to drop it. One piece of coin minigame coming right up. One person is riding on Plessy while the other ones are riding on their little platform themselves. Alex said that this 1v3 minigame is quite unbalanced and that it's really easy for the one person to grab the 3 people trying not to get caught by the crane. So yeah, we'll just have to see if Alex was just insanely good at it or if it's genuinely unbalanced. Now at first I was like, how is this game balanced at all? We have 3 people versus 1 person trying to throw snowballs at each other, but it looks like the one person has 2 small monkeys that are helping them out. It's a coin minigame! The 3 people have giant coin bags on their heads and the singular person is trying to whack them on the head so they can get some of the precious loot. I imagine the way that this one works is that you have to time your button presses so you hold on to the bars. So as soon as one person holds the bar, the next one can let go and grab the next one. In this one, you have to try and not stress out and get the right food on the right conveyor belt so they fall into the right boxes. Oh, this one is a beauty. I got to try out this one also, and essentially you have to get an even 50-50 cut of the stakes that they present. These stakes have different forms, so it can be quite deceiving where you have to cut, because sometimes you think, okay, I got this, and then you just didn't got this. In this 2v2 race, I imagine one person gets to steer and the other one has to button mash or something to make your vehicle go forward. Then we have this 2v2 button mashing game, not much else to be said there. Again, I love when they change things up, and this one is looking to do just that. Each team has to line up shapes so they together make the shape in the middle. This one looks like some type of memory game. Now there's not a lot of cards, so maybe it's just who can get it fastest, or there's multiple rooms so you pass the thwomp and then there's more cards laid out for you where you have to find the pairs. Then we have a returning minigame from Mario Party 5, Defuse or Lose. The premise is simple, ground pound on the fuses so they don't reach King Babam. Another returning 2v2 minigame, this time from Mario Party 6, Jump the Gun. One person can choose where to put the bullet bills and then the other person has to platform across. In this 2v2 minigame, I think that one person is controlling left and right and the other person is controlling up and down. Try to reach the goal before the other team. Oh, this 2v2 minigame is a coin minigame, but it's one of the best. So this is a game where you'll try to trick your opponents. You have a couple of seconds to jump on the buttons, and depending on how many buttons are pressed, this platform in the middle will rotate. So if 3 people are standing on it, it will rotate 3 times, and you want to get the spots with the most coins and avoid the ones with bombs. Treasure chests? I do believe that this is also a coin minigame. You're trying to both lasso the same object so you can pull them towards you. Don't get the bombs and get the big chests. Now we're reaching the point where some of the minigames simply don't have any good screenshot or gameplay from the website. I believe that this is a 2v2 fishing minigame, but much other than that I can't make out. And now we have the Duel Minigames, and this one we do have quite a good look at how it works. You're trying to ground pound to whack your opponent with this giant glove. Why don't you just keep ground pounding? Well, if you time your jump correctly, as you can see here in the end, you can jump over the glove and then the person who ground pounded will hit themselves. In this next one, it looks like you're both rolling a giant boulder, or maybe you're just trying to let it go and then it hits something in the bottom, and it could actually be some kind of bowling minigame, maybe similar to the one in Breath of the Wild where you have to roll a giant snowball down a mountain. Again, the detail ain't great on this one. In this one, it seems like you have to time when you pump this little machine. Don't get hit by the fuzzies and reach the goal before your opponent. Oof, this one is really hard to make out. I actually have no idea what's going on here. It looks like there's a lot of colored balls. Maybe the different balls have different amounts of points. Your guess is as good as mine in this one. So now we have the item minigames, and I do believe that in the start you will have a ball, and then depending on where the ball falls is the item you get. The best item is of course in the bottom left, and I think that's a golden pipe, where on to the right we have a mushroom, and the other ones else is just too hard to tell. Now, I don't know how this one will work, but it seems like you'll have to choose one of the lined paths, and depending on which line you choose is the item you get. This one looks to be a curling minigame, so you have to let go at the right time so you can get the item that you just want. A memory game where if you line two of the same icons up is probably the item you'll get. And this one I think you have to drop a crane and there's a little platform on the bottom so you can get one of two items. And now we're moving on to the Jamboree Buddy minigames, and we're starting off with a classic. It's Leaf Leap. Now Mario also seems to be competing, which I find quite bizarre because in the end you're just trying to find one winner. Maybe if Mario wins no one gets him, I don't know. Now the next two minigames do have footage but are not shown amongst the 112 games. Now there were 5 question mark spaces, but I do believe that those are boss minigames as those are not depicted on the chart either. And instead, when you're trying to get Mario, one of these 3 minigames will play. So you have Leaf Leap, then you have Bumper Bolt, another returning game from Mario Party 1, or Shy Guy Says, also from Mario Party 1. Now I don't know if you're trying to compete in all 3 at the same time, or if it just chooses one of them at random, but you can see that Mario is always the ally you're trying to win, so I'm just a bit confused. Then we have what I believe is a Luigi ally game, because it has Haunted Mansion vibes. You're trying to line up the pictures on the wall as quick as you can so you can go out the door. Will you go into another room and then do the same process again, bit harder? I don't know, because I haven't played this one. Another Jamboree Buddy minigame is this one where you have donuts on plates. Maybe you have to select the right amount for the table over on the left before the other players. I don't know. And in this one, it looks like Daisy is the ally you're trying to get. You're all jumping around on barrels and some of them are missing in the waters. So are they slowly descending into the water? Well, either way, the person who last falls into the water is the winner. Now, this one is quite hard to make out, but I can see that it's Wario standing there. There is some triangles. What does it mean? Let's move on to the next one. The best looking Jamboree Buddy minigame of the bunch. It's the Waluigi one, and they've kept it completely on theme with a pinball minigame. Whew. I love that that's just become Waluigi's thing. Thank you, Mario Kart DS. Then we have the Yoshi one, where you're actually riding on Yoshi. It's a platformer where you have to reach the finish line before your opponents. This one looks to be the Rosalina one, since you can see her right here, and it's a snowboarding minigame. And this one is the Donkey Kong one, which is the one Alex got to play, so we also have some footage of it right here. It's a rhythm game, of course, where you're trying to hit the R and L button to the tune of the track. This is the Bowser Jr. one, where different stuff happens on the screen. Here you have to catch some chickens, and now you have to avoid the electrical balls. And that was actually the last Jamboree Buddy minigame that we know of. Now, I don't think there'll be one for everyone because there's not 22 unique minigames here. I think some of them will be reused. For example, the Haunted Mansion one, you can have Luigi, you can also have Boo, or this last one with Bowser Jr., you can also have Bowser. So we'll just have to see which ones gets repeated with which characters. Alright, it's time for the Bowser's Kaboom Squad minigames, the 8-player co-op ones. And in this one, you're all divided into different teams. 3 on one side, 3 on the other, and 2 in the middle. You're all trying to make apple juice. What good citizens we are here. Stand under the shadow and push the volleyball onto the next player, and the next player, and the next player until it reaches its final destination. Now, I couldn't find any better screenshot of this, but I have actually played this one myself. Essentially, giant ships pass you by, and you all have a cannon each and are trying to hit these targets. If you hit a line, you get a bingo, which is more points. This one, I don't know. It is too pixelated and I cannot make it out. I think maybe it's bob-ombs that are on the ground and you're trying to do something with... Again, I only have a super pixelated picture of this. I cannot really make this one out. It looks like there's some kind of conveyor belt of some sort. Well, I think again, you'll maybe split into some teams where maybe there's 2 on one side and 6 on the other. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, this one is also very pixelated, but it's a bit easier to see what's going on. It looks like you all have some kind of buzzer and are trying to get the same symbols on the bottom. Here you can see that they all have stars. Ooh, nice to finally have some good footage. This one was shown in the trailers, and you're all trying to cooperate to get one full picture in line. This one you all have to time your L and R presses to beat the Wiggler in a race. This one looks like a cooperative take on Look Away from Mario Party 2. Instead of having one player who dictates which direction you can't look into, now you just have an arrow and you're all trying to either look the way the arrow is or not look the way the arrow is pointing. This one I actually got to try myself, so even though we don't have a lot of information, I can tell you what it's about. It's a puzzle in the middle, and outside you have different puzzle pieces, so you're all trying to run out to the puzzles and put them in the right place. And that was all the 8-player minigames, and we're now moving on to all the 20-player online Kooplathon minigames. These all have a focus on coins because the more coins you get, the further you proceed on this board. And in the first one, you're trying to whack molds in the head. Don't whack the bombs, and do especially whack the golden ones. This one, it looks like that classic game where you have a ball on a platform and it bounces in between, and you're trying to move your platform to break the block so you can then eventually get the coins. I love how much detail there is in this one. You are a baker and you're trying to get the bread just right so you get the most amount of points per order. Don't let it stay too long in the oven though, because they can burn and then you'll get no points. I got to try out this one myself too, and it's hills of sand where obstacles and coins are flying in from the top. Avoid the obstacles and get the coins. This one was shown briefly in the trailer, and you're trying to align this finger so you push as much down as possible. This one Alex and myself got to play, and it's really fun. You're racing as fast as you can and are trying to get as many coins as possible. In this one, I simply cannot make out what's going on. There's not enough detail, and I've not tried this one out myself. I have tried out this one though, and how it works is that you have one room full of 2 types of enemies. You then have 2 doors in the back and have to go through the door of which there's most enemies in the room. So if there's 10 Koopas and 5 Goombas, you go through the door where there's 10 Koopas. If you choose correctly, you'll get to a room where there's loads of coins, and then you just keep repeating this until the minigame phase is over. In this one, it looks like you're inside a cannon and have to angle your shot to get the most amount of coins. And that was all the basic Kooplathon minigames, and now we have the 5 Bowser Kooplathon minigames. In these ones, you're trying to stay alive as long as possible, and in this one, fireballs are getting shot at you from both sides and you have to jump over them and avoid them at all costs. The giant imposter Bowser is chasing you, giant cannonballs are falling from the top, and lava is under the platforms which you are so dearly trying not to fall into. These next 2 ones, I have no idea what's going on. My best guess is that these are all heads of Imposter Bowser. It looks like he has his hat from Mario Odyssey on. Honestly, that's the best I can do. And in this one, we have a giant clown car, presumably with Imposter Bowser in it, and you're trying not to fall into the lava. This one we do have footage of. Imposter Bowser will click a button and a shape of all the squares will show itself. Get into the shape as quick as possible, as all the other squares will disappear, and if you're in them, you will fall to your doom. And then we have the last category of minigames, the cooking/rhythm ones. Now we only have footage of this first one which was shown in the trailer, and you're all trying to cut these vegetables to the rhythm. This next one looks like a baseball type of game where the penguins are throwing fruit at you and you're trying to hit it into the fruit ball at the back. The next 6 ones are very blurry. I can only make out small details. For example, this one, it looks like there's some type of sandwich. This one, you're flipping pancakes. This one, you're trying to make burgers, and here, a hot dog, and yeah, it looks like some kind of dance show, and here, maybe shooting stuff in the distance. And this one actually looks a bit like Rudder Madness from Mario Party 8. But there you have it, those were all the minigames. And that was all the details I could find on Super Mario Party Jamboree. Hey, you forgot to talk about the items! And lastly, let's talk about the items, because there are 37 of them. At least that's what it says on the website. Now let's get the board-specific items out of the way first. So on Mega Wiggler's Tree Party, we have the Wiggler Bell, which, well, moves the Wiggler to the opposite side. On Goomba Lagoon, you have a conch shell, which can change the tides. Rolling Raceway, you have the quadruple die, which will just let you zoom even quicker around the board. In Rainbow Galleria, you have the 200% that you can give to another player, and then their next purchase will be double price, be it an item or a star. And on King Bowser's Keep, you have the switch item, which will let you change the flow of traffic. The rest of the items are as follows. You have a double dice, which will let you roll 2 dice, triple dice, which will let you roll 3 dice, payday double dice, which is a double dice that you get coins equal to the roll. So if you roll an 11, you will get 11 coins. And there's also a triple version of this one. The custom dice block, which will let you roll whatever number you want from 1 to 10. Creepy dice block that you can use on a player so that they can only roll 1 to 3. Super creepy dice block that you can use on all players so they can only roll 1 to 3. A warp pipe which warps you to a random spot. A golden pipe which warps you right to the star. The warp box which warps you to an opponent. The shop hop box which warps you right in front of a random shop. Jump call lets you move a star. Dueling glove, choose another opponent to duel. Hexes are back from Mario Party DS. Oh my god, I'm so pleased. So the way that these work is that you place them on a space, and then if someone lands on them, something will happen. This can either be that you steal their coins or their stars. The mushroom is also here, which just adds 5 to your roll. A mushroom coupon, which I think works so when you go to an item shop, you can just get a free mushroom. The plunder chest, which steals an item from an opponent. This mirror, which I heard is some kind of warp thing, and then there's also a golden version of it, so actually that makes sense. In the golden version, you can choose your opponent. Lone stones, which I think just takes up space in your inventory. A hidden block card, which makes you try your luck with a hidden block. The Bowser phone, which lets you call Bowser and make him do the Bowser Space event on another player. And the skeleton key, which lets you open specific doors. So yeah, there's still quite a few items that we don't know of. So what on earth are they hiding? Well, I for one cannot wait to find out October 17th when Super Mario Party Jamboree releases. There's just so much I cannot wait to experience with my friends, the boards, the different mini games, and yeah, I mean, I already got to try out the game when I went to PAX over in the States, and it is so fun, so I cannot wait to play more than when I got there. I got to play a bit of the Wiggler board, but if you want to know more about what me and Alex played of the game, well, you should check out this video, which I'll link down in the description, where me and Alex just go over what we thought about the game. Alright, that was everything. Stay safe, play some Mario Party, and we'll see you in the next one. Felix from Nintendo Life, out. That was such a long video. Oh my god.